Thank you for joining us here on this exclusive Shield interview. I'm Brendan Johnson, and joining me here on set is Trace Ostergren and Trevor Richardson, our incoming Student Senate executives for the 2014-2015 school year. Guys, thanks for joining me here.
Oh, thank you, Brendan.
All right, I'd like to begin with saying that the student body has spoken. You guys have been elected as our new incoming executives. Can you take us through that kind of excitement being elected by your peers?
Well, I'm more humbled by the experience because obviously, in the end, I was unopposed. I had an opponent, and then I didn't. Mm-hmm. So obviously, there were students who supported Justin. So I have to take that into account and realize, how blessed I am, to be here in this position because I was not, chosen by a majority of students. I was chosen because I was the only candidate running in the end. So I have to take that into account definitely coming into this, and realize that I have a lot of work to do, to fill that position because I have to take in all those interests and all those opinions into account going into this. But I'm excited for Trace, though. The student body spoke there, so I'm sure he could speak to that excitement.
Trace, how about you?
I'm really grateful and I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to it. And I'd like to thank the student body again for taking your obligation and going out there and voting for your student body vice president.
All right. And if you could take us through some of the goals that you have in plan for your time in office next year. I don't know, Trevor, if you want to start us off on that.
Yeah, sure. I definitely, looking back now after being vice president for a year, you get caught up in a lot of the kind of technical Senate workings when you have, the best laid plans to do a lot of things. So now kind of stepping away from it, and now as president, I have sort of the role, to focus more on the outward role of Senate versus the internal workings that I did as vice president. So I sort of have this kind of two-pronged approach that I'm looking to start this next year. One is focusing more on Senate student interaction, student body interaction, and then the other is Senate's visibility and the image that the organization presents. So on the Senate side of things, I'm looking more to enhance our appearance on the Valpo kind of community stage, whether we're doing more community service events, partnering with more student organizations, doing more work in that route. And also I'm hoping to get maybe like a little segment on the Shield or something like once a month or once a week or however we work that out, where senators, like multiple senators come in, different senators talk about, what's going on, and maybe they have students or student organization leaders come and talk with them about issues on that as well. Hoping maybe WVUR, something like that too. Maybe the Torch, we'll see if we can get like a little column. Something I tried working on this year, but it didn't exactly go through, so I'm hoping to pursue that again. But then with the outreach to students in particular, I'm really hoping to go back to the student organization liaison program that former Senator Helen Dolly and I worked on my sophomore year, and see what's working, what hasn't worked, in its trial run year. Really make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, making sure that it's concrete and great from the start so that student organization leaders feel like they have that way to communicate with the senators. But also I need to have the senators, working from the beginning to go out and get that constituent feedback, because that's a concern I heard a lot this time with various interviews and talking to various people during this election season. They felt that Senate was not representing them. They felt that they didn't have their concerns heard. So I have to make sure, that the senators are actually bringing forth those concerns to the meetings, whether it's we have a large open forum meeting maybe in the library where everyone comes and shows up. We go into Founders and have senators walk around and ask questions, whether we really promote and have students come to the meetings and talk. That's something that we really need to work on. Okay. So that's really my sort of two-pronged approach to going into the next year.
Yeah, and I like how that you make that contrast between, the two offices, inward versus outward. And Trace, you're going to have that kind of inward focus on the Student Senate as the vice president. What are some of your goals, maybe for your time in office?
Pretty similar to Trevor. I'm looking forward to us becoming a team, really strong team, very obvious team on campus, letting our presence known in Senate and throughout the organizations on campus. Through my campaign, I ran on a platform to have some objectives and some missions laid out for what I personally would want to see changed and implemented on campus. I'm looking forward to working with Trevor on some of those things, and I believe he's also in agreement with me on what can be done and implemented on campus, so that's a good thing. I think the Valparaiso student body has a lot to look forward to with the T-squared team. And
I like that.
And I'm pretty excited. So.
Yeah. All right, and some of the changes that you might want to see on campus, you know, after this past year, some things that might not have worked, some things that, you know, you'd like to see, whether they be on campus or maybe even in Student Senate itself. So Trace, I don't know if you have some changes.
Off the top of my head, something that's very relevant to the past few days might be with the election. Say, implement a kind of election system that will include students that are abroad and here studying domestically. This way, we can try our best to include every single student and even get more engaged in the process of their student body government.
Okay, and Trevor?
I agree with that. You know, that's a great thing. You know, we only had, what, 10% voter turnout? I mean, that's abysmal when you look at it in the greater picture. You know, it's really difficult to get the turnout, so it's really important for us to look at some way to maximize that, whether it's online voting, something like that. But it's something that we're probably going to have to start working on right away, and it's going to take a long time because the logistics of it is just a mess to figure out, to get it working, everything, so you don't have any loopholes, so the system works, so there isn't like multiple voting and stuff. So it's something that I'm excited that we're going to be hopefully working on this time around. I think that's great, you know, and I definitely think something I want to see is just more forums with students discussing, you know, on campus. I feel, you know, students say that their interests aren't being represented, that their voices aren't being heard. We just have to sit down and find out the best way for that to happen. You know, I know Justin and Trace brought up, you know, some sort of discussion forum for students, which is something I talked about ages ago in my old VP campaign, but, you know, just with everything that had to go into the details of it, just wasn't something that was feasible this year. But, you know, I think going to this upcoming year, I think it's something we can definitely go back to and at least look at to see if it's feasible. Because we want to make sure that it doesn't turn into something where, you know, students are criticizing each other or other organizations or the university itself. You know, not a fair criticism, but just kind of blatant, mean, nasty things. But we want it where students can air their legitimate concerns, you know, that's productive to campus as a whole. So that's something I think we can look kind of into, and that's something I'm excited about.
All right. And you know, you just said the T squared. I really like that. I think that's clever. And I know, Trevor, you know, you've been working with Alex, and Trace, you've been working with Justin. You know, those kind of relationships. What can we expect for next year? You guys working together as executives with the entire executive team and Student Senate itself.
Well, you know, I mean, the student body spoke. I mean, we obviously had two different running mates going into this, but we knew that this could obviously happen in the end. I mean, there's no animosity, I don't believe, on any end. I mean, I spoke with Trace, and Justin, you know, and let them know, you know, I don't hold any hard feelings or anything. It's the process, you know, and that's who the student body felt was best for the position and to represent them. So I need to say, okay, and work with that and find out how best we can work together to make things good going into the future. You know, I like working with anyone, so I'm not too worried, you know, so I think it's going to be a great job. You know, we've interacted a couple of times already, and, you know, we've gotten along pretty well. So, I mean, I don't see any problems going into the future.
Yeah, Trace?
Not at all. I'm excited about it. Okay. Just like Trevor, I work well with others, and I believe our goals are very much overlapping, which is a good thing.
All right, that's awesome. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share? Any at all? No? Covered it? All right. Well, you know what, guys? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming in for this interview. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you, especially here at VUTV.